Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we embark on day 2 of a 5-day program on technologies of hope. I'd like to start this morning with a very brief reflection of why it is that technology has been so problematic for the human race, particularly since the Industrial Revolution, and why the use of technology has brought us quite literally to the brink of extinction, along with a million other species, as we all teeter on the brink of the precipice with climate change and a variety of other challenges induced by our use of technology in the world today. It's a very complex subject, but I want to reflect in the following way. Technology really began with the Greeks in a fundamental way. It was Pythagoras, in the 6th century BC, Greek philosopher, who was the first one that we know of to discern that nature, as we experience nature, was governed by laws that were discernible by the human mind. Before Pythagoras, no one that we know of had understood that the natural environment, the ecological framework within which we live, is actually discernible. And that opened up for the human race some possibilities that had really never been conceived before. That if nature is knowable, nature is manipulatable. And this is a very important fact for us to be aware of as we contemplate what technology is and how we use it. The Greek word for nature was phusis. And that essentially means is the process by which things arise and die, because everything in nature is in constant flux and is arising and falling away. But when you take in that embedded in nature are mathematical principles, geometric shapes, for the first time, it's possible to go into nature, discern the mathematics, and develop what the Greeks called mechanics, technology. But the essence of what mechanics means in the Greek is to trick. And I want us to just think about it for a moment. Nature's in perpetual flux. And what humans seek to do, unique among species worldwide in its power, is to bring stability and fixity to that which is always moving. We're all in houses. Most of us have central heating. We drive in cars. If you think about it, most of what we do as human beings is to protect ourselves from the ebbs and flows of nature. We don't like to be outside in the winter. We like to be inside. So the natural impulse of humans in civilization, as Sigmund Freud says, is to give humanity a capacity to dominate nature. Because even though we're of nature, we want to control nature so that it's comfortable for us. And that's why I said the Greeks, we use trickery. We use mechanics. And so if you think about the history of technology, it's the history of how human beings in an ever-changing world are trying to fashion stability through accessing the mathematics inherent in nature, which is what Pythagoras discerned, to create a world that we control. But the world that we control is inherently in contradiction with nature. And that's why there's always instability. If everything is in flux and there's a species seeking stability and control and dominance, there's an inherently contradictory, conflictual dynamic between the very technologies and the very mechanics that we employ to make an unstable natural order conformative to human issues and human drives and the most basic human agenda around stability. So there's much that can be said about it, but the bottom line is that the use of technology, as we've experienced, always leads to a dominance that, even though we're using technology for the best of our motives, we just want to be comfortable. So we invent all these products and all these technologies. But in the existential reality within which we find ourselves, we end up where we are. And I know this begs this question about whether there's good technology and bad technology, and there for sure is. And we're spending this week on the technologies of hope. But I want to raise this question that is very deep in any discussion about the application of technology and whether technology itself is something that is problematic in its essence. Over the next couple of days, I'll be reflecting on what the Greeks and other Jewish and Hindu thinkers have thought about this, but I'll leave it for now. And before we dive into our program, I want to invite all of us to just pause in the midst of all the tumult and the hustle and the bustle, to simply breathe together. In a world of escalating turbulence, developing inner coherence is a fundamental imperative. And the most effective and fast way to do it is simply to breathe. So I want to invite you to breathe now with me. You'll hear the sound of a bell. When you hear the first bell, just start to breathe in for about 5.5 seconds. You'll hear another bell and just exhale for about 5.5 seconds. We'll take 10 breaths together. When you breathe this way, you breathe in 5.5 breaths in a minute. You take in 5.5 liters of air, and it is the most effective way to calm your body, optimize your body systems, bring coherence between your heart and your brain, and instill you with the emotional calm and mental acuity that all of us need for a world of complexity. Thank you, everyone. Let us breathe together. Georg? Thank you, everyone. One of the ancient Greek thinkers defined phusis, the Greek word for nature, as that breath that unites all the contraries into harmony. And just like when you breathe coherently, you unite all of what you are into a unity. Reflect for a moment that that's nature at its best. It's in this spirit that I want to welcome my good friends, George Cappannelli, the founder and CEO of Age Nation, and Tom Eddington, the founder and CEO of Endangered Global. Tom and George and I have been like the three musketeers developing Humanity Rising, and as George mentioned yesterday, into Humanity Rising Network next year. They've convened many of our programs and now the technologies of hope. So George and Tom, I turn the program over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody, to day 2 of Technologies of Hope. I just want to say, if you missed yesterday's program, go back and watch it in replay. You want to talk about 4 voices that are doing extraordinary work and bringing a lot of hope to the planet. The 4 individuals that were on yesterday will open your heart and touch your mind and remind you of the possibilities. And I couldn't encourage you more than to go watch it. A few comments I want to make in extension, I think, in some ways, and maybe in a little bit of difference of opinion with Jim. When I think back to the fact that Homo sapiens have been, it's been said that Homo sapiens emerged on the plains of Africa about 250,000 years ago, appreciably before the Greeks, of course. And for a very long time, throughout the history of this species, innovation and invention have been part of the history of the world. In many ways, for a long time, that innovation and experimentation was done with an inherent, if not a logical or mental sense of the mathematics of the world. There was great harmony because people lived in reliance on and in support of the natural laws for a long time. And it was only, as Jim reported, in some ways, with the Industrial Revolution, that humanity took a detour, and this obsessive concern about power over nature played a more significant role. And with that, we lost touch with those inherent laws of nature and alignment with the mystery that allowed humanity to survive for so many of those 250,000 years. Now, however, I think at this time of crisis in our world, at this time when we are on the lip of potential extinction, what we're seeing emerging are a variety of people who, through their intelligence and their discipline and their imagination, are finding ways to help mitigate the damage that has been created largely since the 1700s. And so now we're birthing this thing called the Technologies of Hope, because I do believe that if we as human beings learn to use the technologies that emerge, the mechanics, as Jim calls them, for the greater good and with genuine consciousness, remarkable changes can still be made that might allow us to protect humanity, the other species, and the well-being of the planet. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Tom, do you have some opening thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, George, and thanks, Jim. Just a couple of things I'll share. So, Jim, your comments about humanity using technology to control nature, certainly in contemporary society, we've taken it a step further, as George was saying, and we've tried to control each other for good and for ill. And we've also tried to control the human body, both for good and ill. And certainly today's program is going to be in part about how we were using technology for the benefit of the human body. The other piece I'll share is if we look across societies throughout human history, and I'll use Chaco Canyon in particular, the Chacoan people at some point in their efforts to control nature realized that they had gone too far. And at some point, they sealed up all of the buildings, and the archaeologists and anthropologists still don't know were the buildings seized to keep something in or to keep something out. But they abandoned the Chaco Canyon and the other Chacoan sites across the 75,000 acre or 75,000 mile area here in the Southwest. And we've got other whether it's Easter Island or other locations around the world where human populations at some point realized that the technology they were using to control nature and each other wasn't working. And I'll leave it there and look forward to our panel today.
Thanks, Tom. So let me introduce David Schmidt. David, will you turn on your camera and come on, please? David's the CEO and founder of LifeWave, a leading wellness company. He's also a longtime inventor. I understand 94 issued patents, 13 pending, and 70 of those are in the field of regenerative science and technology. And among these is something called a patent that deals with the Double Helix Conductor. David's going to tell us more about that. It produces fields made up of electromagnetic and non-electromagnetic energy. And these fields do a number of different things we're going to talk about today, including improve wound recovery, and it can produce results and benefits that are comparable and in some ways different than traditional stem cell treatments. David's also under an organization called Advanced Applications Group, has done a lot of research and development on a whole host of things. We're going to ask him to tell us a little bit about some of those remarkable things that involve bladeless turbine generators and combustion rocket engines and new methods for producing oxygen and hydrogen. But our central focus is going to be on wellness. In a little bit, we're going to be joined by Onyx Cole and then Jill Bouzon, and we're going to talk a little bit about the LifeWave impact on human beings. But David, welcome. It's a delight to have you with us today.
Thank you, George. Really enjoy being here today. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to your community. And also, I really enjoyed the opening because I would be an inventor that adopts the philosophy of researching and developing biomimetic technologies, those technologies which mimic life. And this is an extraordinarily exciting area of research and technology because it means what we're intentionally trying to do is create things which work in harmony with nature. So we will have a planet and technologies that are sustainable. So for me, you're hitting all the right buttons today.
So tell us, since one of the emergences from this double helix discovery is this patch, this product called LifeWave. Talk to us about LifeWave. What is it? What does it do? Why did you create it? You know, that sort of stuff.
Sure. So, well, in the 90s, I had a very small company with a group of guys called Advanced Applications Group. And we were developing new technologies, survival equipment for the US Navy through government contractors. So we were an independent workshop, and the things that we were focusing on were power generation systems, emergency oxygen supplies, new types of batteries and fuel cells. And I happened to make a presentation on one of these systems that I came up with. And as a result, I was invited to be part of a design team for one of the Navy's next generation mini subs. And the objective was to find a way to keep people alive longer. And up to that point, what personnel were doing were using things like caffeine and amphetamines to stay awake for a long period of time. So you have the SEALs could go on missions that were 30 hours, 60 hours, and they need to be able to perform. So I thought, okay, this is a cutting edge technology, this sub. So maybe we can do something cutting edge with survivability. So I began to look at ways that we could improve the way energy is made and utilized in the human body. And what this led to was a way to stimulate the body with low levels of light in a completely new way that had never been done before, to turn on a biological process. It's called beta oxidation, but the public knows it as fat burning. So a new way to turn on fat burning to increase energy. And turned out that it worked really well. Within about 20 minutes of application, people would get 20, 30% or more energy, and the energy was very constant and stable throughout the day. And then over a period of the last 20 years, this has been developed. We have over 80 clinical studies, and we're doing some very advanced things now that I wasn't even dreaming about 20 years ago.
So and from this LifeWave as we know it, those patches, tell us about the patches. What?
Yeah, so the patches they're small devices that you apply to the body, and but there is no chemical that's in the patch that goes into the body. Instead, it uses your body as a power source. So it takes body heat and it activates these organic crystals that are in the patch, and the crystals start to reflect very specific wavelengths of light at very low levels that stimulate the surface of the skin. So this is a process called photobiomodulation. But it just simply means that we can turn on a biochemical process in the cell using low levels of light. And there are over 5,000 clinical studies now in the public domain of how this process works. But basically, you stimulate the skin, it's going to turn on in the electron transport chain, cytochrome C oxidase. Cytochrome C oxidase then increases ATP production in the mitochondria. And now we have a reserve of energy where we can turn on receptors, or we can turn on genes that will allow for an increase in, let's say, a specific peptide that's going to mobilize stem cells or detoxify the body through increasing antioxidant production.
And what about the statement I made earlier that I read in your material as well about wound healing?
Yeah, so I started this work back around 2008, 2009. And at the time, we were interested in stem cell research and looking at what type of device could activate the stem cells already in the body. So we know that stem cell medicine is the future. 10 or 20 years from now, people will go into a clinic and a hospital, and they'll be given an injection of stem cells. And this is going to be wonderful because stem cells are how our bodies heal, right? They're going to produce collagen, growth factors. So this is in complete harmony with the human body. But now, today, stem cell therapy is not widely available. There's a lot of regulatory challenges, and still there's some scientific hurdles to overcome. So what I was looking at, more than 10 years ago now was there a way we could take the stem cells that are already in our body and reset them to a younger state and make them more active? So we put in years of research to developing something called a double helix conductor. And I actually brought one out of my lab to show your folks here today. But this is an electromagnetic coil. It produces a blend of electromagnetic and non-electromagnetic waves. It'll produce a longitudinal field, and it very much resembles a toroidal wrap of DNA. And so what we found that we could do with this is dramatically accelerate wound healing. So we worked with a number of researchers, including Dr. Norm Shealy, and we ended up doing 2 investigational studies after we got through our animal testing, which was showing that it was safe and very effective. We chose 2 different populations, one with idiopathic neuropathy and the other with diabetic neuropathy. And of course, in those pathologies, we're going to see elevated levels, at least in diabetic neuropathy, we're going to see elevated levels of blood sugar that damage peripheral nerves, primarily in the feet. And what we found that we could do with this technology is induce a signal that would trigger neurogenesis and neurite outgrowth. So we were finding that we could regrow the peripheral nerves and do it safely. And so that required 1 treatment per week, which was 30 minutes, and the treatments ran over a period of 8 weeks. So in the first week, we had 68% of the population saw significant improvements in their condition. After week number 2, it was 86%. And after 3 weeks of treatment, only 3 treatments, it was 100% of the population were seeing benefits. So by the end of the 8 weeks, what we had done was reduce pain levels, improve circulation, and reversed the pathology. So it was a very, very exciting start to this program.
And so, Tom, jump in and, with questions that you have.
Yeah, I was about to do that. So I've been following the stem cell research over the last 20 years. And, when I look at how stem cell research has taken place and some of the applications in the early days, it was taking stem cells out from someplace outside the individual, injecting them into the body, oftentimes at the site where they were needed. And then, the evolution of that technology has been taking the stem cells from a person's blood and then injecting them back into the body. And what's fascinating for me is your technology and how you're, through an external patch with no intervention into the body itself, you're able to not only activate the stem cells, but enable the body to send them to where they need to be, which is it's an extraordinary evolution over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that you're raising. So let's say that we look at the case where we want to do stem cell therapy safely. So as you mentioned, some of the alternatives that are available is to give someone a drug which will induce the stem cells in the bone marrow to come out into the blood. You then capture the blood, filter it, and extract the stem cells, and can either use them or you can inject them. And then, of course, stem cells we're going to find in body fat as well. So those are 2 possible extraction mechanisms. But the disadvantage to that approach is that as people age, the quality and the number of the stem cells begin to decline. So we see that after age 60, there's a 60 to 80% decrease in stem cell activity. So what we began to look at was, what can we do to remedy this? So I had found some work in the literature by Dr. Lauren Picard. And in biology, of course, what we had always learned was that aging was a one-way street. And that, you're born, you age, and then you die, and there's basically, nothing you can do about that. Well, there's a phenomena called parabiosis, and basically you take the blood of, a young mammal, and you put that blood in an old mammal, and the old mammal starts to become young again. And interestingly, the FDA has more or less banned this practice. But what Dr. Picard had done 50 years ago was to take liver cells from someone that was 80 and incubate them in the blood of someone that was in their 20s, and the liver cells started to regenerate and become young and healthy. And over a period of a number of years, he isolated that to principally copper peptide, although there are a few other peptides that do show some pretty significant age reversal effects. But he found that copper peptide, GHKCU, was this master regulator of gene expression in the body as well as stem cell activity. So he began to run a number of studies and publish them showing that copper peptide could induce some very significant stem cell activity in the body. The problem is that you can't take this peptide orally because it breaks down in the stomach and is slightly toxic. And most people don't want to give themselves injections of copper peptide on a daily basis. So I saw this research and I thought, okay, this is very much in line with the work we're doing with the double helix conductor. Let's see if we can now develop a light therapy device that will mobilize the stem cells and use wavelengths of light instead of using these lower frequency, what we're producing in the double helix conductor. And so we were successful at this, and now have a patch that stimulates the skin with light. When you draw the blood within 24 hours, you see statistically significant increases in copper peptide. And within about the first week, you see statistically significant improvements in protein synthesis, in metabolism, and where we started in wound healing. So basically, you put this patch on, it elevates a peptide in the body, which naturally declines with age. This resets the stem cells to a more youthful state, and it will activate the P63 gene, which gets the stem cells to go to where they're needed. So that's under the hood about how that works.
And is it actually recruiting the stem cells out of the bone marrow?
No, actually, it does something a bit different. Copper peptide acts as a Yamanaka factor. So not only do we see the circulating stem cells get reset to a more youthful state, but the skin stem cells, they actually revert to pluripotent stem cells that now increase the number of circulating stem cells. So I have some pictures that I can show later of how in real life this has an impact on wound healing and overall health. But yeah, so what we see so far, we haven't shown whether or not there's any stem cells in the bone marrow, but for sure there are stem cells in the skin that revert to being pluripotent that now increase the number of circulating stem cells.
Thank you, David. I always have to laugh. I've had the pleasure of having several conversations with you and listening to a few of your different talks. And every time I listen to you, you go deeper in the scope and depth of the experience that you have and how it brings life to these products and services that you're producing, you know. I have to tell you a quick personal story. I was introduced to the patch several years ago. And not very long after that, I was out for a hike in a box canyon. And I was hiking with just hiking sandals. And I took a misstep and I slammed my other foot into a rock. So much so that I had to break a branch off of a tree as a staff to work my way out of the canyon. And we were supposed to go on a major 10-mile hike 2 days later. And I said to Sedina, my wife, no way in hell am I going to be able to go. So she suggested that I put a couple of patches on the bottom of my foot and my big toe. And I left it on for 12 hours, and then I put another patch on and so forth. And within 2 days, I was in a hiking boot on a 10-mile hike with no after effects. And to this day, it still amazes me, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
somebody in the chat, Kurt in the chat, was saying, how does this impact neuropathy? And I would imagine, based on what you described as the treatment, that it can have significant impact.
Yeah, what we found, so first neuropathy, whether or not it's induced by high blood sugar levels or whether or not it's idiopathic, we do know that when we see nerve damage in the body, it's as a result of a decline in the master antioxidant glutathione. I had the pleasure to work with Dr. Tom Budzinski many years ago, and that was his life work was looking for a treatment for Parkinson's disease. And today, as a result, many medical doctors will give their patients IVs of glutathione to help move sugar out of the body, manage blood sugar levels, as well as protect the nerves. So the first thing is that if someone has neuropathy, they should be taking a supplement such as NAC, getting enough cysteine in their diet. They can use a technology like our patches to help protect the nerves. There's actually literature which shows that copper peptide does in fact induce neurite outgrowth and neurogenesis and can be used as a method for managing neuropathy. That's obviously a medical claim, and we don't make that claim about our product because we haven't done that clinical study. But with the Double Helix Conductor, we have done those studies, and we did in fact show that it will regenerate nerves. So the good news is that if someone is suffering from neuropathy, that there is technology both here now and on the horizon to very successfully manage and reverse that condition.
Well, David, I want to take a little side trip for a minute, because someone also said, are there any women associated with LifeWave and whatnot? And obviously both Onyx and Jill are with us today. So I thought we might bring them in, and then I want to come back to more on the work that you're doing. I know you have some things to show us, and I also want to talk about what's on the horizon. So Jill and Onyx, can you come join us? Turn on your cameras. And
Good morning.
good morning.
I'm Onyx.
I'm Jill.
You know, let me we'll put you on gallery here so that we can all be seen, and David as well. Onyx, you've been, you're at, I think, what's called a presidential director level in terms of your relationship with LifeWave. And Jill, you do an awful lot to help people understand. So let's talk a little bit from your perspectives, both of you, about this incredible technology that the Greeks didn't have, but we do have. And talk a little bit about your experience, would you?
Sure. Jill, you want to go first, or would you like me to go first, sweetheart?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I guess it's a little bit over 3 years, 3 years and a couple months ago, I heard about this, and a dear friend gifted me a month's supply. And I started using them the day after I turned the big 6-0. And I've been into health and healing and natural foods for my whole adult life. So I had a good jump start, but I was starting to experience some symptoms of more symptoms of aging, like a little bit of arthritis in my wrist. And I would say, and I'm a real, like, I drive myself really hard. I've actually been working very diligently for 27 years in the natural products industry and the supplement industry. And so even though I probably had more energy than the average couch potato my age, I still had energy issues and what they might call some, autoimmune issues, that sort of thing, that I balanced with my diet and my, better choices. But when I started using the LifeWave patch, the X39 specifically, within the first week, my stamina level went to like, wow. And I just was doing my normal go, but without feeling drained and just feeling like I had more support from within. And that was probably one of the first things I noticed. And overall, my sleep changed. I would say overall, I feel like the using it for, an extended amount of time, I feel like it's really helped to balance my overall nervous system. Yeah.
Very cool.
And there's other things too, but that would, those are my two highlights. Stamina system.
Incidentally, Georg, if you're there, could you put us on gallery view so that the audience can see everyone at the same time?
Well, I'm seeing you at gallery view. Maybe
good.
Jim has to do it because he's host.
No, okay.
I'm seeing it on gallery.
Oh, good. Because
Yeah.
someone, I don't know who in the chat said that they don't have it. So you can manipulate your own screen to gallery view then and see what everybody else is seeing. Onyx, a few thoughts, please.
Sure. So I was introduced to this amazing product called the X39. It looks like a little round Band-Aid, just like Jill, a little over 3 years ago. And I also, like Jill, have been very committed my whole life to my health. And my whole goal has been not to end up in a white coat's office when I get older. So I do a lot of preventative things. And I knew what photobiomodulation was because I actually had purchased a red light bed, and I own a red light bed that is here in my house. I had no idea that you could do photobiomodulation with this little bitty patch. So for me, I'm 56 years old. What I noticed immediately is that I was sleeping better. And the way I knew that is I was dreaming better. And then after using the patch for about 3 weeks, I not only was dreaming more, I was remembering my dream for 3 and 4 days, which I had never had happened before. After using the patch for 3 weeks, I went with a girlfriend of mine who's an esthetician to California. And I have an age spot right here. And she said to me, Onyx, I said, what? She said, that age spot of yours is 75% lighter and 75% smaller. And I was like, wow. And then my hair started growing like crazy. I literally go get it cut now every 2 weeks. The girl at the salon is like, Onyx, you got to stop coming in here. And I said, why? I want to have short hair and it just keeps growing. You cut the boys' hair every 2 weeks. Why can't you cut mine? And then I had an amazing testimonial. I have one of those fancy periodontal dentists who maps the pockets in your gums. I have a map of the pockets in my gums before I used X39. After using X39 for 1 year, I went to the dentist. He starts mapping the pockets. He says, Onyx? I said, yeah. He said, what's going on? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, 75% of your pockets are gone. He said, has your dental hygiene changed? And I said, no, sir, I'm sorry, it has not. And he said, well, this doesn't happen. As you get older, they get worse. And I said, well, I've been wearing this little stem cell activation patch called the X39. I went back 2 years later after wearing the patch, 12 hours on, take it off, throw it away, rest and rejuvenate for 12 hours and put a new patch on. After 2 years of wearing this amazing little product, I went in, he opened my mouth and he said, wow. I said, what does that mean, sir? And he said, these are completely healthy gums. So it's amazing what your body can do when you give the body what it needs to heal itself. This patch doesn't heal anything. The body is healing itself. And it's fascinating to watch because I literally have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people in my organization that love this product, that it's shifted their lives. And it's amazing because everybody experiences it differently. And I like to describe it in my layman's way, that we all have our own little black box inside our body that knows what we need. And your stem cells know what your body needs. So it'll go after your weakest link first. So what it went after for Jill is totally different than what it went after for me. And it'll be totally different probably than each and every one of us, because we're all very different human beings with different needs.
David, just I'll direct it at you, but I'll certainly invite Jill and Onyx to respond as well. I was at a scientific conference a couple of years ago, and one of the speakers said that we now have a human being on the planet that will live to be 150. And so looking in the chat, a lot of people are asking, is this technology for enhancing human mortality? Is it about enhancing quality of life, or is it longevity?
Our mission statement has evolved over the years. When I started back in 2002, the goal of the company was simply to have light therapy products and have this technology improve overall wellness and lifestyle. So we had products for improving energy, relieving pain, and improving sleep. And as we evolved and we got into anti-aging and regenerative science, the mission statement began to change. And today, the products that we have in our research are specifically for age reversal. So the X39 product is really the very first age reversal product that we introduced, because it will reset about 1/3 of the human genome back to a younger, healthier state. So the type of research that we do, which we've been very successful with, is looking at how to regenerate the telomeres and lengthen them over time so we can get the cells to divide more and also extend lifespan and keep people younger longer. We've also done some interesting research, again, biomimetic in nature, and looking at species that do not age and how can we mimic that in a device. And we've also been successful with that. So my belief is based on our research that people that are alive today, they live over the next 10 years, are going to see these technologies introduced. And I think lifespans will go well above 150. Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, believes that lifespans will go up to 900, 1,000 years old, which is quite biblical,
to say the least.
Yeah.
Jill, I know that you were kind enough to put in the chat a link to your site that deals with ageless kinds of concepts. Would you repeat it so people on the broadcast will get that as well?
It's www.agelessliving-stemcells.com. And there you can get information about purchasing, how to purchase. There's different ways to purchase. And also my contact is there, so I can guide you on that. It's my email and my phone number is there, and much more information. I see people are asking some information about different patches, and all of that is on that site. We really, we recommend that you start with X39 and stay on it for at least 90 days. I know for me, I didn't say that before, but if I hadn't stayed on it, sometimes people will try something for a couple of days, and I did have a big result within the first week, but that's not everybody. So we really recommend that you use it for at least 90 days. And these changes that I had the most significant, profound changes, noticeable changes within the first 90 days.
Agreed. And I usually tell people that collagen regrows in your body in the first 90 days. You want to give this at least a 90-day trial. It's $299 plus taxes and shipping for a 90-day trial. And here's the coolest thing, you all. David actually offers us all a money-back guarantee. So you can have a 30-day money-back guarantee or a 90-day money-back guarantee, depending on how you come in to use the product. So it's fantastic that we can try it on ourselves and see a shift. And my experience is most people notice a shift in their body in that first 30 days. Maybe 3 or 4 people out of 100, it takes more than 30 days. But I tell everyone, give this at least a 90-day trial. Most of us have lived riotous lives, and our body needs some time to be able to regenerate and heal.
Onyx, Jill, want to thank you very much.
My pleasure.
You're welcome to stay on. And we want to go back to David and go deeper into the technology that you have developed. I'm interested in hearing about the longevity pieces you were just talking about. And so maybe we can pick up there.
Sure. You know, I actually saw in the chat, there's a number of people that are concerned about having 8 billion people on the planet, living 900 years. And as a practical matter, I don't really see that happening for a number of reasons. And I would be in agreement that I don't think having 8 billion people on the planet is a good idea either. The trend currently is depopulation. And depopulation actually very, very rapidly. At least those are the projections that I've seen. As to what number of people the planet can support, I'll leave that to other scientists and politicians. Maybe we can do that with policy. But the goal that everyone has is sustainability and to live on a planet that is clean and healthy. So, from my perspective, the technology that we're developing, healing the body and supporting the body with light, I hope will create a shift in consciousness and the way people think about things, that we don't have to resolve all of our health problems with pharmaceuticals, which are synthetic molecules to begin with, and by definition are not in harmony with nature, that we can do things in harmony with nature that are good for our health and produce some dramatic results. And maybe this shift in consciousness will help people think about energy producing technologies, transportation, material science in completely different ways as well.
So in the last piece, an answer to Tom's question, you made some comment about sprays. Would you talk about how does this technology work, or how does the technology translate into not just the patches, but to other things?
So this is a different technology that I've developed, and it uses a structured water that I invented. So to describe this, I have a number of patents that I've filed on this, so I can talk about it a little bit. So I'm going to show you this coin, which looks like gold, but it actually isn't. This is a new material that never existed before. It doesn't exist outside of our labs. So we were using this double helix conductor, and we were using it to accelerate protein synthesis in the cell, in the endoplasmic reticulum. And what we were finding is that the rate of tissue repair was exceeding the biological limits of tissue repair. So I began to think that there was something else going on. So myself and another researcher, we came up with this concept, and we began to grow crystals in our lab. And we were finding that this technology could, in fact, make crystals grow faster, and also they would bring the crystals into alignment. So I used to develop metal alloys back in the day. And so I thought, let's run a very, very basic experiment. We're going to take a element that has a low melting point. And in this case, this is made of tin. And what we'll do is we'll produce a pacification layer by letting it combine with ambient oxygen. And normally tin will, when it oxidizes, will become kind of like a dull gray. And what we saw is that when we subjected the metal to the energy coming out of the coil, that the energy, that this changed the bond angle. the way oxygen was attaching to the metal, and it was increasing the amount of energy in the reaction. There's a lot more to it. But the simple explanation is we sent this out. We used a piece of equipment called X-ray diffraction, and we were able to validate that this material never existed before. So then I began to think that, okay, how are we going to apply this so that it can benefit people? Hydrogen exists in a metallic state. So what if we broke down hydrogen into a metallic state, subjected the hydrogen to the energy of this coil along with oxygen, and maybe what we could do is create a new phase of water. And we, in fact, were successful with this. We were producing water structures that we had never seen before. So I took this technology, and then for our first product, what we did was took the water as a base, and we added specific herbs and essential oils to it. So the water acts as a delivery system. And what we found is that the nutrients in the water could be absorbed by the body very quickly. They could be metabolized very quickly, and we could do some really interesting things. So I'm 59, and one of the things I'm interested in is keeping my testosterone levels and other hormones elevated as I age. And what we showed in our blood studies is that within the first 3 days, there were people that could double and even triple their testosterone levels. So my testosterone levels today went from the mid 300s to over 700, and 700 nanograms. That's going to be about a man in his early 30s. So these sprays are for improving hormone profile, improving energy, and one product specifically improves sleep.
So sign me up, considering I'm significantly older than 59, you know. But what are some of the other things? In a little bit, I want to weave back to Jim's opening about technology and the technology, the consciousness of humanity, and that perhaps some of the natural impediments. But you've done so many other things, David. You've talked about this drone that you've created and other things. Talk a little bit about the other mechanics.
Yeah, so the drone. So actually, where this started was with my son. And I was just looking to do a father-son project with him. And as we got to talking about what we could do, I began to think back on some of the technology that I worked on in the 90s. And I thought, okay, maybe with a little bit of updating, we could develop a drone technology that had never been available before. And, what's the mission statement? What do we want to try to accomplish? And it became kind of self-evident from the very beginning that this was going to be something really extraordinary. So at this point in time, after about 2 years of development, we're at the place now where I believe we're going to break the world record for continuous drone flight. The drone that we have today, if we could hitch on the military system, which we can't, we have to wait for the public system to go online, we could fly from Orlando, Florida to Juneau, Alaska and back without ever refueling and without polluting the planet. As a matter of fact, the exhaust from the drone is cleaner than the ambient air. And that was something that, we proved in tests. So the mission statement of the drone is that we have a working relationship with the Red Cross, who we've been working with since 2005. We want to use this technology for search and rescue. So you get a hurricane or tornado that hits an area, you could put this drone up in the air and have it fly for days and fly in grid patterns back and forth and look for survivors. with infrared cameras and other cameras. People that are lost at sea, you could again take this, flying grid patterns and look for people. This is definitely not a toy. The first version of this has a 15-foot wingspan, and we're even thinking bigger. But the drone can carry up to 280 pounds of medical supplies. So when we've spoken with the Red Cross, imagine you have a hurricane that hits Haiti and you want to get people medical supplies very quickly. You could launch from Orlando, be in Haiti within, a couple hours, and drop medical supplies exactly where it's needed. The drone has VTOL and a non-VTOL mode. So you can either land on pretty much, any field, short takeoff and landing, or you can use the VTOL capabilities to land on a beach, let's say.
David, I'm just curious, as you're talking about the different technologies, and you shared your initial work in the 1990s with the military, but I'm just curious, you as a human being, you as a person, where is this innovation coming from? Where's your motivation, your drive? What has in your life made you who you are?
I had a Christian upbringing, and from a very young age, I was in a prayer group. And, as I studied the Bible, I wanted to I saw what Jesus was doing, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And, the idea of healing people and feeding people is pretty appealing. And I didn't want to be a farmer. So I thought, well, maybe I can do something with trying to heal people. And so that was kind of the initial impetus, but I've always had an interest in creating things and inventing things. But as time has gone on, and you mature and you learn different things, what I believe today is that when you pray, you can access a higher state of consciousness. You can access, some people might call it the Akashic field, or accessing the divine. But very much now today, I believe that anything that I've been a part of developing, the information has not come from me directly. It's all come through downloads, through prayer. And so I'd want to give God the credit for that. So ultimately, these technologies have to be used for the greater good. They have to be used to advance mankind. So we're healing people with light. We're healing people with energy. We're creating non-polluting energy production technology that can be used to save lives. So the direction I very much want to go in with this company is to make a difference in the world, so we can create technology that's not harmful to the planet, create sustainability, and provide healing as well as other things.
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to you throughout the program, and I just kept coming back to what drives you, what motivates you, where did that originate from, and what keeps you going? So thank you.
Yeah, I have kids, and I'm really scared for my kids about where we are in the world today. And we can't leave our children with the planet in the condition that it's in. Mankind, I'll say it that way because I think men are mostly responsible. I'd let women off the hook on this. Men are pretty bad. Mankind has done a horrific job at polluting the planet and polluting human beings. If you took blood samples, you look at any number of studies that have been done on this, you could take a sample of several hundred people, 100% have foreign chemicals in their body. And the average number is 97 or 98 foreign chemicals. So this is outrageous and, can't be tolerated any longer. So I very much believe that we can use technology to clean the planet, clean up our bodies, get people healthy naturally, and then create technology so we can have a sustainable future. And that means, different things to different people. So the technology, I don't think, is so much the issue. It's more the politics involved of getting these things to market. There is hope.
David and Tom, and in a few minutes, Jim. So, you know, we've yesterday and today, we've talked about this question of technology for the good, or technology, you know, in the destructive, polluting sense that it brings us to this point in time. And I personally keep coming back to the thing you've just talked about, David, and that's one, where does creativity come from? How do we translate that? We're almost, in my opinion, it's like we're transponders. The energy comes in, and then the question is, what's the consciousness of the being that then brings that information, that download out into the world? And so it seems that this question of consciousness, especially if we're going to have that kind of quality, positive impact on the planet for your children and the children of all of humanity, are we going to allow future generations to survive and to prosper in our world? That it is always this question of consciousness and focus. What is the intent of the creator? And Tom, weigh in on that from your standpoint. You've worked with creative people all of your life as well. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I think you know, I'm challenged in that, you know, oftentimes creativity is happening within the structure of an organization, where there are rules and guidelines and, you know, requirement that the creativity be channeled into a new product innovation, into a new product. If I contrast that with artists I've worked with throughout my life, whether it's in film or fine art or sculpture or elsewhere, it's, you know, it's tapping into the universe, which is, at least my interpretation, is about beauty. And you know, the energy of the universe is the energy of love, and so that combination of beauty and love is what is the source of that creativity. But it does get manipulated and misused in the drive for making money and commerce. And I think that's where, you know, technology oftentimes becomes misused, or, you know, the folks involved in it misunderstand or don't fully understand the ecosystem they're operating in, and the technology that gets created falls short of what's needed and what's possible.
Yeah, you know, I think there could be a happy medium, but it's up to the owners, the CEOs, board of directors of these companies, to your point, have the intention that they want to use their revenues to develop tech that can help people, and not necessarily for financial motives. I would completely agree with that. With LifeWave, we have 3 different components. We have our products, we have our business opportunity, and we have our humanitarian efforts. So when we started with this, the idea was, okay, when you're a company that's successful, you should give back and help those in need that are less fortunate. So we've donated money to the Red Cross, we've donated money to UNICEF and organizations like this to help with relief efforts, provide medical aid. But a point came where I thought maybe we could work with these organizations in a different way. Maybe we could create technology and new tools that they could use to make their efforts more effective. And as a result, use this technology as a symbol of what's possible. So the drone initiative is nonprofit. The idea behind this is we would take money that we've earned, put it into the program, and use it to facilitate relief efforts globally for people in need. But it's not just a normal drone. What powers the drone is something that actually cleans the air as it flies And the engine itself is extremely efficient and very, very clean and healthy for the environment. So myself and my team, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what would this look like, how to create it, what should it do, and to see it work and work in real life after several years of development has been incredibly rewarding.
David, the technology that has created the drone and its engine, is it applicable in other industries other than, in other words, can it be used in other ways other than on the drone?
If the political will is there, then yes. So we could easily take the technology and create clean burning, I'll refer to it that way, although that's a little bit misleading, but we could create clean power plants that someone could use this to power their home. You could have distributed generation. So if you wanted to have this technology used to power an entire community, you could do that as well. Could power automobiles, it could power boats. The base of the technology is not really very limited.
So, you know, a number of beliefs that I hold is that energy is basically neutral, that it's a question of whether or not how it's used. I know in human beings, I believe that we either use the energy that flows through it, or that energy causes a lot of difficulties in us as instruments, you know,
Sure.
which is where a lot of the addictions and traumas and other things come from, at least in my belief system. So, Jim, you want to come back in? Let's pick up this conversation on consciousness, on mechanics, on whether technology can, in fact, produce good in the world, or whether it's always going to be that kind of struggle as the Greeks believed.
Well, first, David, hats off to you, brother. You're doing some incredible
Thank you, Jim.
stuff. I'm just sitting here. I was on your website and just looking at all your products and the ways that you figured out very creatively to help people stay healthy, which, as you're pointing out, in a world of endocrine disrupting chemicals where we've got, 100 foreign chemicals in our body, we all need to focus on the fact that we need to enhance our capacity just to stay, normal.
Yeah.
And you're doing that in a very powerful way. One quick technical question. I note that you can only buy your products if you're a brand partner. So it's not, your website isn't open to ordinary people that would just want to buy the patches or anything like that. You've got to be some kind of a partner.
Oh, no, actually, we have a customer and then a preferred customer program. So if someone just wanted to purchase the patches and use them for personal use without becoming a brand partner, they could do that. And
Okay.
I'll let Onyx and Jill cover that. But
Yeah,
yes, it is available.
And then to the larger question that George is making, I would say that one of the exciting things, and I think you represent it, that I didn't kind of get to, but I think is worth really stating, that given the deep problem of technology, I would say, as it's emerged, biomimicry is the only way through the thicket. Human beings have to stop using technology to trick nature, to somehow neutralize it and dominate it, to just as you've done. How do you use nature in a biomimicry way where you're mirroring nature? So to the degree to which we can enter into that sanctum sanctorum. And I want to just stress this and get your comment, because you're a man of faith. What the Greeks believed was that what we experience is the outer manifestation of nature, but the inner realm of nature is where divinity is. And if you can enter into that divinity, you're told how to use nature for service of the divine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why the Greeks had a Promethean notion, which is conquering and dominating nature, and what they call an Orphic dimension. And feels to me that you're very much in the tradition of Orpheus. You know, you're using nature and using this for the sake of the divine, which means for the sake of healing and compassion. And I just want to note that and just acknowledge that as a man of faith, you're using technology in a way that's fundamentally of service to divinity. And
thank you.
I don't know whether you have any comment on that, but I think there's a deep connection between what you do and what you believe.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I believe that your premise is absolutely correct, because human beings have a history of wanting to dominate others. We have endless wars for centuries, attempt to dominate nature, which is kind of silly when you think about it as a presence, because we're trying to destroy the world that we live in that provides for every need. So it's not a very smart thing to do, to destroy where you live. But so how do we go about and create technology that's in service to humanity, in harmony with the planet and nature? Well, we can look at previous researchers like Victor Schauberger, who lived in Austria in the early 1900s to the mid 1900s, and he was known as the water wizard. And he had a number of patents, so at least there's a historical record of his work. But very much he was in favor of, when we look at log flumes, the way that log flumes were being built back then were distorting the flow of energy through the water. And so what he would simply do was install devices made of wood that would keep the water flowing in a natural way, cause the water to spiral, and that way the logs could move smoothly down the river in harmony with nature. And Schauberger had a number of technologies like this. So when we look at how are we going to solve the energy crisis, it's really not almost the correct question that's being asked. What really should be asked is, how do we harness the energy that's already available? On one level, we could say, well, you look at solar and that's one form of it, but there's actually enough electricity in the environment on the planet to meet 100% of human needs many, many, many times over, 25, 30, 50 times over what we actually require. And if over time there is a decrease in the population, then, which I hope, then we're going to be able to continue to meet those energy needs without having to resort to nuclear or coal or anything else. So some of the technology that we've worked on developing, which has been successful, has been doing exactly that, tapping into the energy reserves that are already here and it's not solar, it's completely other approach entirely. One other thing to note, and George, this goes to a comment that you made actually, is human beings are more amazing than what most people give credit for. So in the DNA itself, when we look at cell division, the DNA unzips itself so that it can replicate. And the way it does that is that there are hydrogen bonds holding the DNA together. And these hydrogen bonds spiral counterclockwise to one another. So we did a very interesting experiment here where we created plasma, hydrogen plasma, and caused the hydrogen plasma to counter-rotate. And something very interesting happens. Hydrogen appears out of the vacuum spontaneously. And it was Fritz Popp that found that there were these highly coherent emission of light coming from the cell and coming from the DNA, coming from all living things. So what we found, and this was validated by other research, is that hydrogen is all around us. And if we have technology, we can actually cultivate that in a sustainable way. And of course, you burn hydrogen or you put it through a fuel cell, and you're just going to make water. So these are the type of things that we investigate.
Yeah, you know, one measure of consciousness as applied to technology is just to see how much damage or not the technology deployed actually does. When you think of the damage of nuclear power, you think of the damage, the coal to the environment, to health. That's your first clue, whether you're being Promethean or Orphic in your consciousness as you're applying that technology. So the differentiation you're making, David, I think is really, really insightful. And I'm so delighted, George and Tom, you brought David on, because it's inspiring me very deeply, and particularly for a man of faith to be able to do all this because of belief in a divinity is an amazing thing. It's rare in this world.
I wish it wasn't. We could really live in a utopian society instead of dystopian, which looks like we might be headed towards. So it's up to us collectively to bring these technologies into the public so they can be utilized, and show the global communities that there are better ways to do things. We don't have to pollute. We can live in a clean environment. We can generate electricity and energy sustainably. Our cars don't have to pollute. All of these things are attainable, but it's greed and politics that have really stood in the way.
Yeah.
David,
thank you so much. George and Tom, you want to make some final comments, and George, tee us up for tomorrow?
Sure. And first of all, I want to say that one of the things that I have enjoyed so much over the course of this time that I've been associated with Humanity Rising, and that Tom and Jim and I have worked together, is that every time we do a new series, I am touched in heart and mind by the number of extraordinary beings that there are out there that are doing, whether even in the political sector, there are people that are doing so many remarkable things to try to stamp down autocracy and allow democracy to thrive, and in so many areas. And I think the world is now at a point where, as the Hopi elders say, this is not the 11th hour, it is the hour in which we're being called to gather and to come together. And I think that these programs help us remember that, and help us to introduce and be introduced to individuals who are doing extraordinary things, whether they call it that they are in touch with divinity, or whether they just touch beauty and sacredness in a way that they understand. And that's quite extraordinary. And so over the course of the rest of this week and going forward, I look forward to playing whatever part I can in helping to bring more of those people forward to share with all of us. Tomorrow, and Tom, I want you to wrap up. And tomorrow we have two really extraordinary people. Peter Mary, who's associated with Ubiquity, and a gentleman who's just joining us called Karsten Orberman, who's an associate of Peter's. And they are doing work in the conscious use of technology and in consciousness in general that are opening remarkable doorways. And so I invite you all to come tomorrow and join us. And I also encourage you to replay this program and replay yesterday's program. Because if you're looking for hope, and trust in a world that is lacking it, you'll find it here.
Thank you. Thank you both. Just a quick question for you, David, as we're leaving, the approach that you and your team are taking towards technology and innovation is fundamentally different than I've ever seen in business over the course of my 40-year business career. And I'm wondering what you're doing to bring your approach to creativity and innovation and technology specifically to other organizations around the world. It's a remarkable and very, very different approach. I'd love to hear what you're doing to share your approach.
Yeah, I get the opportunity to speak at conferences and share the approach, so build awareness about it. And then working with organizations like the Red Cross, for them, it raises the question, wait a minute, you've been making donations, you're a patch company. What are you doing with this drone? I don't get the connection. So you get the opportunity to introduce this concept of, hey, we've been successful over here using light to heal the body. Now we've put money into development so we can give back and help those in need. And here's how we're going to do it. So we're trying to use organizations like the Red Cross and appearances at conferences to build awareness that this is in fact what we're doing. So I hope this will inspire others to think about it the same way.
David, thank you. I also want to thank Jill and Onyx for being voices and contributing to the overall process. Jim, you want to take us out, as they say?
Yeah, David Schmidt, everyone. LifeWave. That's the future. We've had a touch of the future as it is transpiring now, but a possible future for all of humanity if we live abundantly with nature rather than trying to dominate nature. That'll bring our session to a close. You're all welcome to the after session chat group. You'll see the chat link in the chat box, and we'll see you tomorrow for our third of 5 days on Technologies of Hope. But David, this was a tour de force, man. You've inspired all of us with your humility, but also your creativity and your dedication to the greater good. So I just want to acknowledge you as we close. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
LifeWave.